Hello, everybody. You are listening to Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs, and I am your host, Shelby Olschlager. Our mission here is to help entrepreneurs make a difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. Join me today where we dig deep with our guests to give you the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. Today, our special guest is Krystal Covington. So, Krystal, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the show. And to get started, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, I am a marketing consultant and um, mom of two now. I have a 2-month-old at home that has been running my life now for a little bit. I've been in marketing and PR for most of my career and have dealt with lots of different types of companies. I worked in real estate, finance, and retail. And so I've been across the board and often end up today serving a lot of B2B companies that need to brand themselves and brand their leaders in order to stand out and have perspectives that help their company have a voice.
Right. So before we get into the details of that, tell us a little bit about the beginning of this experience for you. What led you to want to be marketing and also now the chief marketer at Go Lead Consulting?
Yeah, I actually ran into marketing. I went to school for psychology and realized that going and getting my PhD was out of the question. I was burned out after 4 years. I did too much work while also simultaneously getting my diploma. And so what I ended up doing is going straight into the work world as an admin. And I just kept getting asked to do marketing tasks. Previous to becoming a full-time office worker, I was doing a lot of projects where I volunteered my time to make flyers, or I did have a job with the university that I worked at where I was responsible for promoting certain campus activities and things of that nature. And so I had some marketing experience previous to launching a corporate career. And I just continued to become known for that, started succeeding at projects, getting bonus checks for various things. And so I stuck with it. I said, okay, well, this is clearly where I'm becoming branded. And so after about 4.5 years or close to 5 years doing that for one company, my husband and I moved and I just kept with it. And I had the opportunity I could have rebranded myself had I chose to, but I decided to stick with that. And it worked well for me. Working for the marketing team, I stood out really because of my perspectives and the things that I had done. I had done stuff like going out and passing flyers, all these basic things a lot of people that are in digital marketing haven't done. I've done, newspaper ads, like the kind where you fill out a form and tell the newspaper to publish the ad. I've done, things like sending press releases via fax. And so I had this kind of old school experience that I could draw from doing things like direct mail. That then translated into different perspectives for all these people that had been in digital marketing since it began, because I had done all the things. So it kind of, even today, it sticks with me as having a different layer of knowledge. I've had political training too. And so those kind of things, learning how people win political elections was also really helpful for knowing how marketing works and how people connect with ideas and how people connect with people and brands. And so it just kind of accumulated as a wealth of knowledge in my brain. And so my last corporate role, traditional corporate role, was in as a publicist for a regional grocery chain and getting them press throughout the country. And so all of those things accumulated into the role that I have today, which is my own company, and being a little bit more of a capitalist in the fact that I now have things that I sell, and I have a support system of I call them shared services teams. So I have some shared services teams that help me implement the work, and some of those things are things that I can sell, but I don't necessarily have to do a lot of the functional projects behind it. I just need to really understand it and be able to report on it. And so it gave me the opportunity, entrepreneurship gave me the opportunity to come out of the work world and still kind of use the same skill set, still be more of a marketing leader, be strategic and use my creative mind, while having a team of people that are able to help me execute on that work so that I can serve more clients.
Awesome. So there's lots to unpack here. I want to go a little bit back to, if people are feeling that like people would be your clients, they're wanting to, let's say, brand themselves a certain way. You mentioned just even like the leader aspect of really sharing that voice. So what are some things that people can do now to really help them start with that process of showing up as that person and really branding themselves how they want to be branded?
Oh, branding is such a big topic. It's one of those things that when I first started doing it for myself, it was, I think the biggest barrier was feeling really uncomfortable with a spotlight. And I did it so well. I had actually created a local brand here in the state of Colorado in the United States. And we had events on a regular basis. I was selling membership. I sold events. And I centered it on myself as the leader. And I had a book that I would, I printed a book and I would give people this workbook when they joined, and we would have events based on the information in that workbook and the philosophies that I had created my own brand. It got so awkward at one point because it was a local brand. People would see me on the street and they would know me from the internet and they would fill in the blanks of things. I would try to introduce myself. They'd say, "Oh, yes, I know." Or I remember having conversations at networking events and saying, "Oh yeah, there was this time where this happened to me," and people would finish my story because I'd said so much in videos on the internet that they knew all my stories. I didn't have anything new to say. So it was weird. So those kind of experiences reminded me that, okay, this is something that it does take bravery. Can be very uncomfortable. And especially when people in your local network are seeing these things, you can kind of build this persona that you have to maintain as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. So the first step is knowing that you have to take this, work towards this bravery and feeling comfortable in your own skin, being able to look at yourself in videos and hear your voice, and things of that nature. And that's the first barrier. And that's why most people, to be honest, don't actually pursue this. It looks like there's a lot of people that are influencers and that have a really great brand. But even in the corporate space, I remember when I did have people that we were using as voices of the company that were spokespersons, they were really, it was scary for them. And it's a really big thing to overcome. So once you overcome that part, the main thing is having a certain list of things that these are what you talk about. I had one thing when I first came out with building my own brand to start, and that was just discussing the topic of influence and specifically sharing my story and how I overcame being, I'm an introvert. The US culture is not, I know everywhere in the world it's not the same, but our culture in the US is very extroverted and focuses on extroverts and rewards extroversion. And so I found strategies to be seen and strategies to be able to build myself up, both in my jobs and then outside of that as an entrepreneur. And I was able to do that using some things that I had learned through studying the art of influence and studying things like the art of war and power dynamics and all of that. And so that one topic really was able to launch me. And I lived on that one topic for years. I was paid to speak on that topic dozens of times. I still get called on to speak on that topic. I just angle it a little bit differently now, and kind of, I get, I talk a lot to entrepreneurial groups and entrepreneurs. And so I angle it a little bit more towards the entrepreneur, but initially it was a lot of the things that I was called to talk to work actually in the corporate world and teaching people how to stand out at work, how to build their personal brand at work and be an entrepreneur. And so kind of being well branded inside that workplace space. And so that would be something that I would suggest people do, is make sure that you have one really amazing topic, something that stands out, and be be prepared and do whatever it takes personal development wise to be brave enough to come out and make that thought leadership step and make that step to be able to speak up more, share more, and be prepared for that dynamic in your business life. And then the third piece is really having the tools and being able to, creating a brand is just, there is a basic recipe, and, it's just having the right visuals, knowing, how to create that visual look of power and leadership, knowing how to make that persona well known for you, whether that's on social media, in your books, or in your local community. There are recipes for creating that level of influence. And so that's something you really have to focus on.
And I bet a lot of people have different directions of kind of their goals. Either it's just more of like the writing the book or this or that. So what are the type of people now that you're helping, and what are some of the main things that you notice that they really do need help with when you're first working with them?
Yeah, they've been pretty diverse, but I think I would say 75% of the clients that my company serves are B2B, and they're often in some sort of service. And so the main thing that they need to do is actually figure out what the right funnel is for them. So you do have these, yes, I see a lot of people, they make the mistake of, they start building their brand, they focus on, creating content, they focus on getting these things, but they don't have any place that they're taking people to. And so it really just depends on how people usually convert for you. And that then is dependent on the type of business that you lead. What are you doing for your clients? And how are they generally going to respond? So for each one, we kind of identify what the response is in their niche and what kind of person they're talking to, so that we understand what's going to best convert for them. So for example, for me, it's a little bit easier because I have a very easy, straightforward role. People understand what marketing is. They say, okay, this person helps me find clientele, and it's really easy to convert. So it's one of those things where if they like me, if they like my philosophies, they hear me on a podcast, they see me write about something on the internet, or they find me in SEO, which is where most of my clients find me, is through Google search. And so they'll go and find me in those ways. They see, oh, her brand looks legitimate. I see a few reviews. She looks, people have said positive things and their face is there. So clearly they believe in her. And so they're usually able to convert pretty easily from there, because once they found me in that way, they say, okay, well, I found her in the way that I want to be found by my clients. So I'm ready to go. And so most clients that come to me, by the time they've come to me, however they do, they're often ready to convert by the time they reach me, just because by nature of the fact that I do marketing and they can see my marketing and they think it works. For other businesses, it might look a little different. Like I have a client who, he does do the things to brand himself, but his business itself is filled with, workers that are therapists and healthcare administrators and things like that. He has a healthcare business. And so what we do for him is a little bit different. And we do have him doing things that put his brand forward, but we often have him really showcasing the value of the people he hires. And then we do advertising to retarget people that have learned about their business, retarget people that have been to the website, and convert them to things like Facebook ads and Messenger, actually, and having people, respond to prompts and all that kind of thing. So it works very differently depending on the person and the brand, but it all starts with diving into who those people are that you're trying to reach and what kind of dynamics are at play and what makes them choose a vendor or a person to work with.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. And just getting that clear understanding, I think, makes it easier for people to show up. Let's say they have a hard time with that bravery aspect, where if you're really clear, I feel like that makes you more confident because the purpose, where you're going with
Yeah.
it, and etc. I do want to talk a little bit about one, speaking, as you mentioned that you're an introvert. So what was that process like? If there's anyone listening that feels it's just so scary, and I know we talked about it, but how was that journey for you to actually go and speak on stages such as TEDx?
It took practice. And first I was thrown into it. So initially, I mean, I recall I did pretty well in speech classes and things like that, even being an introvert. It's because I'm very process oriented. So I understood, okay, I can study what makes a speech and I can just try to do that. And then I ignore the people. So I see no one in the audience. When I was in high school, I remember I would focus on one person, and so it would be whoever I was closest to and comfortable making awkward eye contact with
The whole
through the
time.
entire speech. And then as I got older, I realized I don't have to see anyone. And so I look into the crowd and it looks like I'm making eye contact, but I literally don't see them. They are a blur in my vision.
Mhm.
And that helped. It's just as if I'm talking to a wall. And so I created that aspect to it, to be able to be brave, but I had to do it for my job. So there was this moment where my workplace, we had an experience where the CEO was just too busy. He had a lot of tasks, and he had started to have a lot of meetings where he was going to need to do presentations, and he said, I can't do all of these. There was one specific day where there were like 3 things that were happening, where he was expected to go present something and he needed to figure out who in the company was going to go. He had asked my boss to do one of them. And she said, no, I told you when you hired me, I would never speak, and I will never speak. I am terrified. I will never do it. Find someone else. All the other executives were busy that day on other assignments, things that were very essential and not, and more important, or equally important as that project. So then he went to little old me, the lowest on the totem pole, and said, okay, Krystal, I need you to step up today. Can you handle this? And I said, well, figure it out. Yeah, I'll do it. And I said, yes. And it was a major thing, actually. I had to go to make a presentation at our city council in the city of Detroit, and make a presentation to ask them to make a change in zoning. And most people would never know what that is, but basically areas of land have categories of what you can do with them. And if you want to do something with that land that doesn't fit those categories, you have to go and ask for that to change. And so I went to city council and said, this is what we're trying to do. This is why it benefits the community. And this is the zoning that we're asking you to change it to.
Mm.
And so we practiced, I prepared, I had those 3 things that I needed to make to get out of my mouth on that day. I got those things out, and then I felt so amazing when I got it done. And then they said yes, so I achieved it. And then they kept asking me to do more of them. They said, okay, well, that worked out. And so every time there's a city council thing, you go do that. And then I also started doing other presentations to present multifamily real estate projects and convincing people to accept those projects. So they were affordable housing. Communities sometimes don't want affordable housing in their area because they look at it as something, people feel like it's going to drop their property value or lower the quality of the neighborhood because they don't want it. It's all, it sounds horrible to say, but it's what I was going up against, is people that felt like, no, we don't want poor people in our neighborhood. And so I would go and I would have these discussions with these folks and talk about how beautiful the property would be, making sure that they know that we pick really great people to live there and all these things to make sure that it felt good, and giving that, influential talk to help it be approved and get community support. And that was my job, which is almost like political. It's kind of like being a politician and going out and kind of selling people on this idea of change. And through that, I got tons of practice. I succeeded most of the time, which kept giving me that confidence that I needed to build and know that I was good at it. And I started finding my own voice and way of doing that communication. And so between the technical knowledge of what makes somebody good at being influential and makes makes somebody a good speaker, that practice helped to build up the repetition and help me to find my strategy. So by the time I did the TED Talk, I had 2 jobs that made me travel around and speak on behalf of the company. And so I had been doing it for maybe 7 years for a corporation, and then finally was doing it then for me, and saying something that really resonated with me. And at that time, it was the TED Talk I did was actually about my being underpaid. So I did all of these really cool things. I was actually going and speaking on behalf of companies in the way that an executive would, but not being compensated well. And I found that I was really on the bottom of the barrel when it came to compensation. When I finally realized it and I told my boss, who was female as well, she said, "Oh my goodness, you were a terrible negotiator." And there wasn't much she could do about it at that time, but try to get me a promotion with a tiny pay bump. So there were little things that she could do, but that TED Talk was really something that was important to me because it was a part of my story. And I didn't want to see other women continue to get put in the same bucket and get offered low salaries that they say yes to, because they don't know what they're really worth. And they think that they're worth whatever someone offers to them.
Exactly. And I hear that so often, just of women with that, having a hard time to know their value, and then even to show up and declare that this is what I'm worth, this is my value, is what I offer and what I charge for that. And yeah, it is such a bit of a blockage for us. And then for you to do that. So if you have this vision of wanting to do that, how was the process like? Like you wanted to share the message. Was it a pretty natural thing to get in front of that audience for that topic?
I had done enough that it was not easy, but it was something I had enough practice doing. And I had a grounding practice that I did in order to do that. They do provide training. So when you do get into a TED Talk, they have practice opportunities and training. And I really worked on my meditation and centering practices. So some speakers, including myself, I focus on this grounding technique of making sure that I stay out of my head. So when you get into your head, a lot of times it's easy to lose your words. It's easy to forget. Even right before the talk, I kept getting back in my head, and I was practicing the speech, and I would try to get the words out, and then I would just lose them. And that was my fear, is that I would get up on stage. I was first. I thought I was going to get off stage, forget my words, and trip over my heels because they were really, really high that day.
Nice.
But I put on my headphones. As an introvert, I could not talk to anybody. I probably looked like the rudest person. People thought, "What is wrong with this woman? Why is she not talking to anyone?" But I had to stay away from people. People were there networking in the backstage, and I was like, "I can't talk to any of you." I put my headphones on, and I had music that was specifically chosen to make me bop my head and make me feel really confident. So they were words that were, women talking about their confidence and all that kind of thing. Or, and I stayed in that space very easily for the few minutes of the introduction until it was my time, which came up really fast, and stayed in my body so that I was able to get it out and do so confidently, which was a big thing.
So cool. I'm curious. I just have to ask, do you remember one of the songs? Is there one that comes to head?
It's kind of silly. I think it was like, I can't think of what it's called, but I don't even think it had much words, but it had a really great beat to it, and it was popular at the time.
Okay.
I
didn't want to call you out, but I was like, I need to know if there's one.
Yeah, other than that, there was a little bit of Jay-Z, a little bit of some rap songs and things like that, and some pop songs that had really great kind of like jazzy beats. And so I still have that list and use it periodically.
Oh, that's perfect. This kind of brings me to one of the final questions I want to talk about is just now that you're providing education, a lot of networking opportunities. So I'm sure that you know, and I know that how important just being together with women, especially like being in a group where we can share and hopefully keep striving for more. So what has that experience been like with building this network group?
It was my survival. And it actually helped me to make my business viable. There were moments when I first started my business and I had first left my job and started doing my marketing and my events full time. I remember going to one of my events and I was really down. And the women knew me quite well. And two of them that had been in business for many years, and they were much older than me, they pulled me aside and they said, "What's going on with you? I feel your energy is different." And I said, "I'm really struggling." And it was money again. So it was still, I said, I don't think I'm being paid enough for the things that I'm doing. I'm being asked to do so much for clients. It's too much. And I don't know how to create boundaries. I don't know how to do this. And they gave me the tips of what I needed to do. They explained strategies. And after one conversation with them, I literally went to one of my clients. I said, "I can no longer do what you're asking me to do at this rate. We started this way. I'm now doing twice the work. It's very different now. And I need to be paid X." And I literally doubled it overnight. She said, "Oh, okay. Well, let me go and get that approved." And it was a major corporation, big brand name that I was working for. And they changed my rate by double. And that happened overnight. And then I was able to do that with some of the other clients. A couple of them said, "No, I can't pay that and I'm going to cancel." And that was fine because I was able to get more. And from there, I started doing things differently and knowing, because I didn't really know what I was capable of at that level yet. And so now I knew, what my criteria were for clientele and all of those things. And so they really changed my life. And so multiple times in having this organization, the women have changed my life. And so it's a really beautiful experience to be part of that. And there's a I had male mentors in my life previously and even as I was starting my business, but the way that they do things and the things that they can do as men is very different. And so I needed that insight from women who've been there, done that, and been further than me to be able to know um, that, I can do what they did and to get it from a female perspective.
For sure. That is super powerful. And again, back to the whole money thing, I think I love that you're able to, instead of like a lot of people have to struggle, they want to get more revenue, they want to get more for their work and they try and get more clients, where it's like you just literally didn't have to gain anything. You just had to double your price.
Yeah.
Right? It was just
Yeah.
like that sort of fix. And I'm sure they didn't have a problem there. Like I've heard some people, they say, "Well, I've been waiting for you to kind of ask for more." Right. And if you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I knew this."
There have been people that, now that I understand it, there have been people that gave me terrible service that I said, "Hey, can I pay you double and you give me better service?" And they say, "Oh my God, that's what the problem was." And they admit that they just weren't getting paid enough and they were trying to, struggle to try to find more clients. And it creates this situation where they can't serve as well anymore. And sometimes people just need to be paid more to be able to focus on you, to be able to give better service. So they're not hustling on a constant basis,
Mhm.
and not taking on 3 times the clientele in order to make their rent. And so it's such a big thing. It's one of those things that we look at people who talk about money and think, "Oh, they're always talking about money," or that, everything is about money.
Mhm.
Groceries are money. So yes, yes, it is. And it doesn't need to be a faux pas to discuss it.
Exactly. So true. Well, to wrap this up, I just want anyone that's listening and really resonate with your message, where can they find you if they want to learn more?
You can find me at krystalcovington.com, Krystal with a K, or find my company, Go Lead Consulting.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a good conversation. I got lots from it, so I hope everyone listening did as well.
Thank you.